Well, hello, all you high thinkers and folks that I hope are thinking in general. I'm Sid High, and welcome to my High Thoughts. And today I was going to talk about the yin and yang of automobiles, or you could also say the analog and digital, perhaps. Would that be more fitting? Anyway, this is the 1969 Chevrolet Camaro and the 2014 Nissan Leaf. So let's start with the Camaro. I bought this car in 1973 when I was 15, about to turn 16, believe it or not, and had it all these years. I bought it for $1,300. Also amazing. It was originally yellow with a black vinyl top, had a 307 V8 with a 2-barrel, 3-speed automatic. All that was very nice, but the big thing was it had factory air. Very nice. It was great. And so I slapped an 8-track in it and some set of radial tires. And yeah, it was great. I just love this car. It's just awesome. I guess that's why I've had it all these years. Anyway, through the years, I was in the Air Force in Charleston, South Carolina. I lived there for quite a while, and it got a lot of damage, rust on it from the salt air. I mean, nothing too awful, but around the vinyl top and things like that. So what I did, I took the car back to the Ozarks to my good buddy Bear, aka Pat Griffith, rest his soul. He had an auto repair shop, and he took it, and then he just painted it, put the white SS stripes on it. We put a cam in it, a 4-barrel headers, a 4-speed manual transmission. We're talking Mad Max here, last of the 8 Interceptors, and it was just awesome. And he fixed it all up, and I got it back around 1988, which was when I moved to Nashville. So yeah, it was Mad Max blasting around Nashville, and it was just awesome. But the problem with that is the gas mileage, if you were lucky, even out on the road, was like 15 miles to the gallon, and in town was awful. So then when the car got about 300,000 miles on it, I took it back to him again, needed a new paint job. So we went with the red with the RS stripes this time, but he put a rebuilt 350 cubic inch V8 in it, a 4-speed automatic. Yes, that is correct, with the overdrive. So that was really awesome. Still had the 4-barrel on it. But out on the road, you'd be cruising along at like 70 miles an hour at 1600 RPM. So sometimes I would even get 23 miles a gallon out on the road, but still awful in town. And that's the way it's set up right now. It's still functioning in that capacity. So let's talk about the operating costs for a moment. All right, I had to check my notes a little bit, talking about the operating expenses. So I'm going to say roughly, with all the repairs and things that I've had done to it, I've got about $16,000 in the Camaro, including the purchase price, not counting tires and all that kind of stuff, just maintenance to it that I've done. Some of it necessary, some probably not. So, but divided by the 50 years I've owned the car, that's like $320 a year. You know, that seems pretty good. And then you start looking at the operating costs, though, and it's a little rough, because if you say roughly average 15 miles a gallon, which is safe because a lot of it was in town driving, and I've got roughly 350,000 miles on it. So you divide that by 15 miles per gallon, and I've used approximately 23,333 gallons of gas. Now, I don't have an idea of what the average is, so I'm going to make something up for the price of gas through all those years. But, you know, I did buy it when there was the oil embargo, so this fluctuating gas price is nothing new for all of you folks out there that think things are weird there, which they are, but I digress. That's part of High Thoughts, though. I get to do that. So if we just say it was $3 a gallon, that's roughly $70,000 in gasoline that I've spent on this. $70,000. And that doesn't count oil, brakes, things like that, tires. So operating expenses is what'll eat you up in a car like this. It is a beautiful car. I love it. everybody, when I go to get gas or I'm driving down the road or taking pictures of it or want to talk to me about it, which is great because I'm glad that they love it, because it is just an iconic 60s classic muscle car. And so that's all fun. So now let's talk about the Leaf. So I bought this Leaf in 2015. It had 10,000 miles on it, and kind of a long story there. Won't go into it in this video. But it was very fortuitous that I got it. It sold originally for $38,000, and I bought it a year later with 10,000 miles on it for $16,000. Now that's some serious depreciation. Don't know, there might be more to it. It was not wrecked. Saw the Carfax and all that. So, and the car's been perfect for, I've got like 80,000 miles on it now. So I've put 70 of those on it. And even out on the highway, we've driven it a fair amount on the highway, but mainly in town, of course. I drove it back and forth to work, and it has been awesome. The great thing about it is that I charge at 110 outlet here in the garage every night, and it really hadn't seemed to affect the electrical bill that much, maybe 20 bucks. So I met a guy at the YMCA that had a Leaf also, and he was telling me he bought a meter to put on his outlet to see how much power he was using when he charged up his Leaf. He said he drove about 60 miles a day, so he had to roughly charge for 60 miles, 60, 70 miles a night. So he said from going about 20% to fully charged cost him like 75 cents to $1. Now that's pretty amazing to be able to go, let's just say 60 miles on $1. And it's the SL model, so it's got the premium stereo, leather, and all that kind of stuff. All it is an electric motor and the batteries. There's, no exhaust, no any of that other stuff. And it's just been awesome. Now, it also will charge at 440 volts, 220 volts, and 110 volts. And like I say, I mainly use the 110, and that seems to have been a good thing because I'm still getting roughly an 80-mile range out of it. And I've talked to other people that charge fast charge because they use their car all the time, and they're only getting about 30 to 60-mile range. I don't know how many miles they got on it, but I think about the same. And when I took it in and had it serviced, I have had it serviced twice. First time was $400, second time was $600. That's the alignment. They updated the computer, all that stuff. I don't think most of that was necessary, but just did it to check it out. And the last time they said that the battery life was about, the range was 81 miles, which is what I thought. And he said it was the best of any Leaf he's seen. And I think that's because I mainly only charge it at 110. Because when you do the higher voltages, it heats up the batteries more. We won't go into that in this video. There's plenty that explain that whole thing. But I guess my advice is use the 110 outlet if at all possible. Sure, it takes about 12 hours to go from hardly any charge to 100%, but the majority of the time I drive it around 10, 20 miles, bring it home, charge it, and it doesn't take that long at all. Plus, you can still run around and do stuff in it in between while you're charging it. So all that's great. And I've put a set of tires on it and windshield wipers. Other than that, I haven't done anything to this car. If you took out that $400 and $600 for the checkups that probably weren't necessary, all that I've put in it is the set of tires and windshield wipers. So that's pretty awesome. So they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm not really fond of the way it looks in the front. Everything else is okay, but I am glad Nissan changed that. And also, I'd just like to point out that really this car isn't for everybody. Just like somebody that needs a truck can't drive a Camaro. You have to have the right vehicle for what your purpose is. So the Leaf is definitely not for everyone. And you really should be a two-car person, family, whatever, because this is great for in town, but if you need to go further, you better have a different vehicle at the moment, right? At least not the Leaf. But again, for around town, it has just been awesome, like next to nothing for the operating expense. So let me check my notes here for a minute. So basically, I was saying 75 cents to $1 for every 70 miles. I've put about 70,000 miles on it. So that means I've spent like $750 to $1,000 on electricity, probably for these 7 years. Now, if I'd have been driving the Camaro, let's talk about that for a second. Let's just say that it averaged 15 miles a gallon. I think that's pretty safe for those same 70,000 miles. Well, if you divide 70,000 by 15, that means that I used 4,666 gallons of gas, approximately, but pretty darn close, I'm sure. So if the average price of gas is $3.50, which I think is also fairly safe to say, that means for that same 70,000 miles that cost me, we'll say $1,000 over here, would have cost $16,333 to drive this for those same 70,000 miles as this. I mean, that's substantial. I mean, that's, plus that's not counting oil changes, you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, wow, that's quite a bit. So let's think about this too for a second. Now, some people will go on about the batteries as far as, you know, the thing is, yeah, you could be using electricity that had to use coal to create, but I would rather be buying locally than supporting terrorism, which is what happens when you burn gasoline. There's no getting around that. And then even if we produce all of our gas here, which the majority of it does come from that, you're still having to pump it out of the ground, pipe it to the refinery, then it's got to get transported, then you got to go and get it. Yeah, it's convenient and works great. I mean, I'm not arguing that point, but I'm saying mining the lithium to do these batteries is also polluting. But I think if you compare the two, I mean, you know, they're both really bad. There needs to be improvement. And lithium ion batteries, I think, are going to go away. The solid state, all sorts of options, but we're not going to get into all of that here at the moment. But the main thing is, I don't care if the electricity came from coal or whatever, because that's rapidly going away and renewables are the future. I hope that doesn't get to anybody, me saying that out loud, but, and that's a good thing. And the thing is, until then, we need to just do what we can to be as efficient as possible. And I think this is it. And so, in conclusion, there's pros and cons to both of them. And the thing is, that's the way life is. And it also depends on what you need your vehicle for. But if you are needing a vehicle to get around in, wouldn't it be great if you had something that can combine the best of both worlds? Oh, wait. Excuse me while I pan the camera over here for a second. What's this, you might ask? Well, this is an extended range hybrid BMW i8. And yes, it is as awesome as it looks and so fun to drive. It is very much like the Camaro. But let's discuss that in the next video, because you'll want to hear more about this car. Until then, keep thinking those high thoughts and have a great day.